Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. In this video, we're discussing all the highlights that we've gotten so far this week from the monthly report for April, as well as the roadmap roundup. This includes a couple new things like a new creature, a couple new ship news here and there that's pretty exciting, as well as some really nice feature talk, including control surfaces, which I'm really excited to talk about. Now, before we get started, if you are enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe. I have channel memberships open if you want to go the extra mile, and feel free to join the community Discord. I'll have a link for that down below, and I'd love to have you there. Besides that, let's get into some pretty exciting news for this week in Star Citizen. Now, before we talk about the monthly report stuff, I wanted to go through the roadmap roundup really quickly because it's mostly just vague news, but there's a couple things to note here and there. Now, for the most part, most of the roadmap update was just them setting things to release again. They've been doing this for the past couple weeks now, and I'm not saying it's annoying at all, but it certainly is not the most exciting thing to look at. Though we did get an update to the progress tracker this week, and this is going to be a little bit more interesting. So we got five new things on here. We got first the redacted sandbox activity, redacted sandbox location, radiation gameplay, redacted vehicle, and a redacted creature. Now, the good news is that we can still pull out a few things here, even though a lot of this is redacted. The first thing is the fact that most of this will probably release at the start of June. This is mainly due to the fact that for the last couple patches, everything that has been put on the progress tracker that has been releasing with those patches basically has gone out exactly whenever the work ended on the progress tracker. So there is a good chance we see all five of these within the next month or so. Now, the first thing we can point out here from this list is redacted creature. I think it is whatever is on screen right here. We saw this in an ISC episode not too long ago with all the hairstyles and whatnot. It would just really quickly popped up on the screen, and I think that there's a decent chance that this is our creature. Now, if it weren't this, I would probably say it's just either the Apex or the adult Valacar. I think that makes the most sense, but I'm kind of betting it on being this kind of weird looking cow thing. When it comes to the redacted vehicle, though, I'm not entirely sure. This is kind of I want to hear your guesses on this one because I'm not sure why they would put a redacted vehicle on the progress tracker when there's obviously so many vehicles and ships being worked on. So really interested to see what this is, but kind of confused why it's on the progress tracker. Now, when it comes to the sandbox activity and sandbox location, I am kind of thinking that this is the Area 18 sewers slash the municipal works. This might not be the, most intelligent guess I could have made, but I am kind of hoping for this. We saw a little bit of this in the recent files for 4.1.1 not too long ago. It wasn't really a lot of information, just kind of mention of it, but it kind of makes me suspicious that we might be getting it somewhat soon. If not, I have no idea. Really, that's my only good guess as to what it could be. Regardless, I am kind of liking the idea behind these sandbox locations, so I am looking forward to it no matter what. Now, the last thing here is the radiation gameplay. Not much to say here. We saw this at CitizenCon 2023, so if we actually do see this in, early June, it will be our kind of first headline feature, I suppose, of the year. Not really much of a feature, it seems like, but it will be nice to have, and it's another factor to consider, and it makes some areas a little bit more dangerous than others. So I'm looking forward to it regardless. I would love to hear your thoughts on the roadmap update. I know there wasn't a ton there, and honestly, I'm really looking forward to actually getting some more information on these things, but I would love to hear your guesses on them down below. Now, when it comes to the PU monthly report, we do have a couple things here that are notable. Arguably, I would say this is a little bit less than the past couple months, but it's still looking really nice, especially on the ship and core gameplay section. Now, as we usually do, we are going to go ahead and skip the AI section just to keep it as short as possible and save us a little bit of confusion here. It is a good read if you want to check it out, but not a ton of highlightable stuff. So, starting it off with the animation, they didn't do a whole lot this month that is notable. They worked on, the content that we've been getting so far, the Valacar mission givers and NPCs, but most importantly, they began work on a new creature. This could be the one we talked about earlier from the ISC, or it just could be a brand new one. I'm kind of thinking it's a brand new one, given the fact that the one we saw on the Inside Star Citizen looked pretty far along, but it could be referring to brand new animations for that creature or just a brand new creature across the board. Regardless, I love seeing new fauna into the game, so I'm really excited for this. Now, moving on to the ship section here, we have the EU team working on Invictus Launch Week stuff, including 3 new ships planned for the release, and the MISC Starlancer TAC that was also completed for its upcoming release. Now, we should already know what these four ships are, including the Starline's attack in there, but there is one ship that I think is a little bit missing and people were kind of expecting to see, and that is the Anvil Paladin. Now, of course, this still could release, and maybe we are just a little bit mistaken, but from the looks of it, it doesn't really seem like we're getting it for Invictus. This is mainly speculative, and again, this is all based off on leaks and data mines and stuff like that. So everything is really all up in the air still, but we do have 1 week till Invictus, so we should find out pretty soon. Next thing we have here is progress is made on four unannounced vehicles. The first one is progressing through white box towards full production. Second one is approaching gray box review and Lot Zero complete. The third, which was apparently briefly shown on a recent episode of Inside Star Citizen, is progressing through concept. I think they meant to say this is through Star Citizen Live, not Inside Star Citizen. I think this is referring to the RSI starter salvage ship, but not entirely sure. The fourth vehicle, the first in a while from an existing manufacturer, has been formally kicked off. Again, I think this is also from the Star Citizen Live. I think this is referring to the Kruger Intergalactic Light Fighter. Not entirely sure, but I do have my suspicions that that is probably the two ships they're talking about here. For the first two, no idea. Excited to hear about those in the future, though. Next thing we have here is the consolidated Outland Pioneer continued through pre-production and white box phases. It's been in this phase for a while now, but it's a really big ship, and I honestly don't blame them for taking as much time as possible. This thing is massive and it has a ton of functionality, so it's probably going to take a bit to get through white box. The modular kits were solidified alongside some structural changes to improve the flow and movement through the ship. The team also continued to define the core visual elements to inject the consolidated Outland art style. Not entirely sure what that would be exactly referring to, but it is really nice to see them working on this ship. And we've been getting consistent updates on the Pioneer. So we should be hopefully seeing it sometime next year. Next thing is the North American content team began closing out two new variants with polishing and bug fixing, and they had an all new ship progress too, with recent decisions being made on cargo capacity and tractor replacement. So it looks to here two new variants and then a new cargo hauler. Pretty exciting stuff. Not sure if the variance is referring to the Guardian at all, but either way, excited to see those. The next thing here does help out a lot of people that were curious about this ship. The RSI Apollo continued through gray box phase with new concepts of the med bay area and bridge. I know that that kind of medical area has been the most difficult part about this ship. I think just getting it all in there with being able to put in different beds and whatnot. So definitely understand that that might take a little bit of time, but it does look like they are progressing nicely through gray box. And then finally, they have continued work on the RSI Perseus to define the interior look and ensure it functions as intended. Doesn't really give us much of an idea of what phase it's in currently, but I assume it's still probably in gray box, just like the RSI Apollo. Tons of new ship details here. A lot of it's a little bit more on the confusing side of things or just staying under the radar. So, not a ton of new information, but as they kind of say here, there's a lot of unannounced ships that are making progress. So, we'll probably see those throughout the year. But besides that, nothing too much here to say outside the RSI Apollo and the Perseus are making progress. And those are easily ships that I'm really excited for. So, glad to see them at least mention it in here. Now, moving on a bit, we do have a couple things when it comes to core gameplay. Now, we're not going to go through everything here as not all of it is super exciting stuff, but there is a couple things worth noting. First things first is the engineering team looks like they did a lot more work again on quality of life stuff, including a countdown warning for catastrophic explosions. I love that idea. That makes me so happy to see this. And they reinstated and advanced the diagnostic screen MFD. Not entirely sure what this is exactly referring to, but again, it's quality of life stuff, so I'm super excited about that. Further improvements were made to ship death. For example, fatal damage behaviors now require a significant impact. In addition, catastrophic misfires can now be triggered by nearby items failing due to severe damage. Improvements to deactivating soft death were also completed, and its effects can be enabled separately. Not entirely sure on the soft death portion here, but everything that that was basically talked about right here kind of gives me the vibe as they're trying to make it where if you do explode, you know when you're going to explode, and exploding is going to be a lot more rare and a lot more difficult to actually happen for your ship. That is something I absolutely love to hear, and I know a lot of players always kind of question like how is death of spacemen and all this stuff going to work. It's going to work whenever engineering lets us actually stay alive longer and our ships won't just immediately blow up. So, again, this is really great news and I'm super excited to hear it. Now, for flight experience, and this is also super exciting stuff, the team enabled the new spaceflight model in their feature systems. They're currently resolving bugs related to AI ships' motion alongside outstanding work on the takeoff and landing experience. Several new game modes were added to allow them to test the new flight model in the future. Due to the data setup, both the new and existing models can be tested separately without affecting each other. This is nice news, but this next part is really the best part, in my opinion. An overhaul of control surface tech began. As such, flying in atmosphere and especially gliding is now much more realistic thanks to believable aerodynamic behaviors, such as the nose falling in turns or accurate drag on large AOAs, especially in regards to changing atmospheric densities. There's still outstanding work on the control systems and interaction with thrusters and the AI systems. Honestly, when it comes to this little update right here, super exciting to me. Doesn't really say much as to what they're doing here, kind of just sounded like they were explaining it to us again. But to have this actually being worked on and to be noted in the monthly report is, in my opinion, a big deal because I'm super excited to see this and to see them actually working on it means at the very least they're making progress and it'll be in our hands at some point in the future. Now, the next thing here was an update to new quantum tech in addition to adding a slow speed variant of quantum boosting. The devs resolved several bugs and improved reliability and performance. It also features improved ways for the mission designers to control the flow for AI ships. Further work will focus on improving the current experience and making it compatible with multiplayer. This is always good to hear. I can't wait for that quantum experience, but again, that should come with the updated control services. So hopefully, we'll see those at some point in the somewhat near future. Next thing here is we have core gameplay optimized scan wave mechanic. I assume this is just when you click tab in your ship and it scans out. I assume that's just simply optimizing that experience. Alongside this, the team continued to polish FPS radar and scanning gameplay via regular playtests. This included adjusting the detection formula, highlighting visuals, and disabling the influence signature system to improve it to better serve the intended gameplay. The team then made improvements to inclusion checks, such as adding a mechanic to skip checks for radar contacts within the same room. This allows for a smoother flowing experience when searching for items or objectives out of direct line of sight, which would previously require a full charge scan to detect. Last thing, when it comes to scanning, the team iterated on the box out display for radar contacts, optimizing and refining the marker placement. Design also began setting up which objects will be detectable by radar and scanning in the PU. This is all good information. Just like engineering, it really does sound like they're just doing a ton of quality of life stuff for this before it gets into our hands. Typically, I feel like we would get this and it would just kind of be a buggy, kind of broken mess, but it looks like they're trying to get it in some really good shape here, so I can really appreciate that. Now, really quickly, just doing a few things from the last couple teams here. The narrative team looks like they were just getting ready for the next capture session, doing everything to prepare for that, as well as preparing for 2026 already. So, kind of interesting if they're already doing that. But hey, as long as it helps them out in the long run, I think that's totally cool. When it comes to R&D, they basically just talked about some dynamic weather stuff and weather stuff really across the board. Not much to say here other than the fact that they are working on it. It really just sounds like they're optimizing it for your CPU here so it doesn't just explode when there's a storm around you or something like that. But good news is that they are working on it and I cannot wait to see this in game. Now, for the UI team, it looks like they're working on some unique UI styles for several upcoming vehicles. Not entirely sure if this is for, Alien Week in June for some alien ships or just like super far down the line. Regardless, kind of cool to see. I assume this is probably some alien stuff, but it could be like updated MFDs as well. So, not entirely sure there. When it comes to VFX, looks like they're working on stuff for Invictus Launch Week, but they also had pre-production on some major releases, including locations, creatures, and weather. Super excited about that, but again, not too much information there. Besides that, though, that is all I have for you today. I know it's a little bit of a longer video, so I apologize for that, but thank you for sticking around to the end. I would love to hear your thoughts on the roadmap roundup. How do you think the redacted stuff is? And then how do you feel about the monthly report? Do you have any guesses to the ship stuff that we talked about here, or just any thoughts on the core gameplay things like control services and engineering? Regardless of what it is, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Again, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.